Headstrom's on.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us on the Will and Dave Show. Quick little disclaimer before we get into tonight's topic. We're going to be talking about a paper that came out in Oregon recently, headline or detailing why the person who wrote the paper thinks that mathematics in schools can be racist. So, with that topic is going to come some talk about race. We may get into some stuff regarding racial prejudices, racial profiling, etc., as well as systemic racism within the United States. So, be aware of that as we get into this tonight.
Welcome to the Will and Dave Show.
Welcome to the table, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Will and Dave Show.
Hey, Will, how's it going, man?
It's good as always.
It's a week, and I had to ruin your evening right before the show.
Yes. We may have some old family friends listening in tonight, and of all the nights for them to listen in, they're gonna hit it on a topic where my progressive nature comes out in spades.
So we have a new friend to the show tonight. His name is Brad Hedstrom, and he thinks you're the boss.
He is my friend. He is my friend because he thinks I'm the boss.
Yes.
Thanks, Brad.
I don't think he knows you very well if he thinks you're the boss.
Ouch. Old wise Dave.
So I have to say that I was having a rough week this week because, just life and whatnot. And about a half hour ago, we're sitting here with our guest this evening, and she said something that just made my day, even though it was a complete and total lie. She called me a wise old man. Old, yes.
She hasn't even been on the show yet, and we're questioning her credibility because she called me wise.
No, but I will take the compliment, by golly. I'll take wise any day. So without further ado, we're going to get into the sponsors and get that out of the way, and then we're going to get into the meat of the show. Who are we talking about today, Will?
Well, we'll start with Stitch by Susan. No relation, obviously, but she's a wonderfully talented quilter. Talented and skilled. It's not just talent. She's worked very hard to do what she does. And even if quilting isn't your thing, the quilts that she produces are genuine works of art. She not only produces the quilts, but she also teaches classes and sells patterns so you can do the stuff that she does at home. So check her out at stitchbysusan.com or on Instagram or on basically any social media out there.
Yes, and on Etsy as well. She has her things on Etsy. And the Hardys. These are family friends. They're an amazing talent, and they live up in Prince George, British Columbia, where I believe it's like 9,000 degrees below zero right now.
Sounds about right.
And Rafter G, old family friends again, who I'm sure would rather I never said their name on YouTube again.
Surprise!
That's right. So, William,
yes,
I called you earlier this week as we didn't have a topic, and I read an article, and this is going to be an easy week, guys, as we're preparing for next week, which is going to be about counseling and youth and COVID and the issues with emotional and mental health. We're going to take an easy week. And then I sent you an article. And I said, I found one.
So we should clarify what the article is. We'll include a link of it on our either on the website or in the show notes for tonight. But it's a how to word it. It's a document written for teachers in Oregon, wasn't it?
Well, it actually, in hindsight, it's been all over the place. And so it actually has been used in Oregon and Washington and California, New York.
Right.
The article was actually in Oregon.
Right.
For this
the long and short of it is this particular document is a paper written for educators, teachers. I think it was specifically geared towards middle and high school. Going over how the author of the document or authors of the document believe that our current methods of teaching mathematics are racist in nature to some degree or other, depending on which portions you're looking at. And they gave tips and pointers for how the educators can avoid perpetrating said systemic racism in their classrooms. So obviously, super lighthearted topic.
Yes. So I
Yeah.
heard about the article on the Daily Wire as I got an email notification because in a weaker moment in life, I signed up. I gave them my email address, and I get Ben Shapiro's emails, and there was this link, and I called nonsense. I said that cannot be true. It's not true. I don't think it's as bad as he made it out to be.
Oh, ye of little faith.
He had quoted it word for word. Now he took it out of context, and I'll give him all the credit in the world for quoting it word for word, although I believe he took it out of context. But it got my juices going, and so I said, "Hey, Will, why don't we talk about it?" And so I reached out, and I got a friend of mine who is a sophomore in college.
Yes.
And you know more details on that, Will?
Well, I know her first name is Jayla. She's a sophomore at Portland Bible College, PBC, in, I would assume, Portland. And I think she is probably between the three of us, definitely the most suited to talk about this particular subject, as you know, she is a person of color. So she has a more informed opinion than I do. So welcome to the show.
Without further ado,
Hi.
Jayla, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Good. How are you?
Always good. You know me. I lie every Saturday night and say I'm always good.
That's more like it. That's more like it.
Love.
So Jayla, I met at our church, and
Right.
I don't even remember, except I could never remember her name. And she came up to me and she said, "It's Jayla. It's like J-Lo, except no O. It's an at the end." And I've never forgotten your name, ever.
How about that?
Amazing.
Old and wise, and you did say that, and I am never going to forget it.
I don't take it back. I think you're.
See,
I learned from
I
you
wish
all
I
the
could
time.
forget it. I'm also never going to be able to forget it because he's going to keep reminding me every
I'm
single
sorry.
day.
Yeah, you have to suffer now because of what
Yeah.
I said.
Yes,
Life
he
is
does.
suffering. I'll get used to it. So
Go ahead, Will.
well, I want to preface as we're going to talk about this article. I want to throw this out there because I'm going to a certain extent be attempting to defend the article, but I want to throw it out there that I agree that the article is way out to lunch. Like, it's over the top. The concepts that I'm going to try to defend in it is I'm more going to try and defend what I perceive to be the impetus behind the person or people that wrote it, rather than defending the actual content of the document, because I think the document is pretty out there in terms of less in terms of why they wrote it and more in terms of what they proposed. I think that what they proposed was way over the top, but I think that there's value in where they were coming from with the article, if that makes sense.
I agree. So we're kind of on the same page.
Great show, everyone. Good job. Woo!
No, we have to be on for 45 minutes. I get paid per minute, so we got to stay on. We're not done. I'm coming back in the stream. Is not over yet.
Oh yeah, it's not over. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I just
Gosh, it was over before it started.
no. I'm gonna get into it a little bit here.
Where's the argument here? Come on.
The article insinuates that a lot of the basic principles that we have in teaching math in a classroom, I say in America, I'm in Canada, but a lot of the what was the example? Showing your work. That was one of the big examples that I saw a lot of people talking about. Is the paper claimed that requiring children to show their work per the normal parameters of showing your work is racist, and they should be encouraged to do it other ways, like say make a TikTok or write a silent film or a dance or whatever other options they provided. And on one hand, yes, I think that that's silly, but on the other hand, I see that I think there's a lot of value in encouraging kids to show their work, but show it differently. If a kid doesn't really doesn't grasp writing down the work like that, if they can still show the work via making a TikTok or a short film, why shouldn't they be able to do that? As long as it's still showing that they understand the concepts that are being presented. I don't see why it would matter what the format is, as long as the teacher can get that they are grasping the concept.
I agree, but I also kind of disagree only because I'm just talking about America here, by the way, when I'm
Mhm.
talking about specifically Black people, not necessarily other minorities when I say this, but most Black communities are living in poor communities. So their education, a lot of Black children's education is lacking. And I
Right.
do like the idea of being able to show your work in other ways, but I also think writing out and showing your work is important because I feel like if a kid say they could only really do it by showing like or by doing other things, that
Right.
to me is making them lack in the future already more than they are, in my opinion.
Right.
Especially because a lot of poor communities you can't do the whole I forgot the technical term for it, but when you can pick whatever school you want, you can't
Right.
district choose. You are pretty much stuck with the school that you
Right. You don't
have,
get
and
the
I
choice
don't
to shop
know.
around.
Right. And so I already feel like that's kind of not good either for a lot of by the way, not just Black
Yeah.
people, pretty much anyone in a poor community in
I'm
that
gonna
case
Yes.
when it comes to
Yes.
education.
I'm gonna jump in here.
It's just primarily.
Mhm.
It's
Go ahead.
it's not for me. The issue isn't the how. The how to learn new means of teaching, to learn ways of learning is not an issue. I think it's important. I think if our math is still as locked in 1803, we're not we're we're not going to be very smart. And yet, for me, it's the equating of the wrong how to teach and saying it's a racist issue is where I come at it from a little
Mm.
from a difference, is that it isn't the how. Like, I agree that there are poor methods of teaching math. I
Right.
take issue with TikTok videos. I think that if you want to show math problem through TikTok and you are the teacher of 18 kids, it's going to make for a hectic class. Now, I'm sure they don't mean that, and I'm
I
sure it's
don't
out of
know because
context a little.
TikToks are easy to make. Any kid with access to an iPod Touch can theoretically make a TikTok,
An iPod Touch.
or
Do they still make
like
those?
a no, but well, I'm not sure actually.
That's older than you are, isn't it?
No, I used to have one once upon a time. But anyways, just any kid with access to a phone basically
Right.
could theoretically make a TikTok for free. It doesn't cost them any money, except for having the phone if someone in their family has it. So it's a low barrier to entry for recording a creative interpretation of showing their work. I don't think they mean like they use TikTok as a reference because that's what's flavor of the month right now.
Right.
It would have been Vine a few years ago. Make a Vine. Rest in peace, Vine. But
Yeah, rest in peace. That was like literally the best app. Just side note,
Thank
man.
you. Side note, we were
What
literally
was
doing a
Vine?
Vine.
Wasn't that an offshoot of Twitter or something?
It was
No, it
7-second
was pretty.
videos.
Yes, that's why TikTok is so big because
Yes.
of Vine. Vine is the one that started like the
Yeah.
7-second or less videos because as we keep going on, especially my attention span is getting shorter and shorter. I want to
Yeah.
get as funny content as I can without watching a 20-minute video. I don't want to watch stand-up comedy anymore. I want to watch a 7-second video that will make me laugh very quick.
Yeah.
So that's why you
So.
agreed with Will 7 seconds into the show. So it would be over fast.
Yeah, there we go.
It all comes clear. So
Yeah.
let me ask you, as a recent high school student and now a sophomore in college, is racism an issue in schools now?
Pretty simple.
It
Yeah.
depends on where you are.
For you,
But
was
I will
racism. I'm going
say,
to aim it at you. Was
yes.
racist?
So for me,
Yeah.
yes, not in an educational way. I
Okay.
am a privileged Black American when it comes to money and education.
Okay.
I would say that in Spokane, I went to one of the best high schools, which was Meade, which
No,
is
you lose out
considered
to
a
Mount
rich
Spokane.
school.
No, you lost out to Mount Spokane. I'm sorry.
Actually,
Rude.
I was supposed to go to Mount Spokane, and I transferred on purpose because Meade has a better music program, and that you cannot debate me out of. But anyway,
My kids went to Mount
Birdman.
Spokane, and my daughter Allison, who was very good, was in the choir there and in the jazz
Oh,
choir,
jeez.
and she rocked it. So I might have
You're
to
gonna
argue
need-
with you.
I
You're
don't
gonna need
know.
some
I
aloe
need
for
to
that burn
see.
there, Dave.
I need to see some more trophies because I don't know. Meade has a lot of trophies of #1, not only in choir but in band and orchestra. I competed against Mount Spokane for 3 years and I won. So I don't know. But anyways,
So I'm going to let you in on a secret for me, Jayla, and this is why I question the I'm going to go back. So William and I have had a lot of conversations as a couple of white guys about race, and this is why we wanted to invite a person who might have actually experienced some, because so I acknowledge advantage. I think actually I've mentioned it to you in the green room at church. So there is advantage as an old white guy. Except I look at you, Jayla, and I don't see color. I really don't. It never get factored into me meeting you that, hey, I don't know if I should hang out with Jayla. The only thing the harshest thing I felt about you is I was jealous of your hair. But that was
Thank you.
really the extent of
I mean,
I don't like Jayla is because of your hair, and I was jealous because I polish mine.
well, not to sound super sensitive,
Yeah.
but I hate when people say they don't see color. Only because
But I
I get
don't.
what they're saying. But yeah, but it's like, okay, so like when I look at you, right, I didn't like look at you and be like, you're bald. But I knew you were bald. Like, does that make sense? So like, you know that I'm black. Like, you're fully
Yes.
aware when you saw me
Yes.
that I'm not white. So
Yes.
you see my color. Because when someone says they
Okay.
don't,
Okay.
that's taking a lot of my culture away.
Okay.
So
In the sense of the race. Shut up, William. Your mic is turned off and you're
Will is
laughing.
I
and
had
you
it
look
muted so I
hilarious.
wouldn't deafen you.
Shut up. I see you laughing in the background. So Jayla, so I should clarify that. So yes, I see color, although I don't see it in the perspective or the lens of culture in which I look at you and say, oh, there's a black person, here is how I have to treat her. Is I look
Right.
at you
No,
and I
that
see
totally
Jayla
makes sense.
Oliver and I say, oh, awesome. She's a cool person, and she sings on the worship team and we hang out after and we argue about whatever it is that we argue about every Sunday we're on together, and it never, if it is you or my son or my daughter, it's all the same. So yes, I see you as a woman of color, except it's like a bald person or a person who has hair who I don't like very much.
You don't
Does
judge
that
the
make
quality
sense?
of their character based on the color of their skin.
I totally understand. You don't, because your mindset isn't automatically prejudiced like other people. So it doesn't
Yes.
matter as much. It doesn't
Well, it
matter
is about
to you
hair,
what
just
color
not
I am.
color.
Right.
He still resents the hair. We don't want to lose that fact.
I do. It makes
Well, that's
me.
what I'm saying. As a black woman, I change my hair all the time, which I feel like other races don't do that as much. I feel like black women are the most people that wear wigs, braids, weaves, all that stuff.
So why is that? Just out of curiosity. I don't think it's a race thing. So why do you
Oh,
do
I
that?
do. I
Oh, do
Yes,
you?
he
I
does.
not
Is it a race
necessarily
thing or
for
culture
me,
thing?
both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I say that because even, what was it, 2 years ago, California just passed a law to not discriminate on black hair because it's always been viewed as unprofessional or you need to pull it back. I've even experienced it 2 years ago at a church where I had braids, which is not distracting. I was on the worship team and they said, you can't have those on stage, it's distracting. But why is my hair more distracting than this girl over here that has bright pink hair?
Hmm.
You're just saying it because you're not exposed to it when Black women wear braids all the time.
Right.
We just don't live in a very diverse area. So for me personally, I damaged my hair because I didn't like my hair because I wanted to be white. So I started to wear wigs for like 2 years or 3 years, so then my curly hair would be long enough after all the damage of me straightening it all the time, so I looked like my surrounding, because I didn't wanna be treated like a toy, which is I still do, but I am more harsh on people now, as in, "Please don't touch me or touch my
Hmm.
hair because you think it's cool and different."
Well, there went my
So
plans for tomorrow morning. I was gonna walk up and grab it. It's
right? So, it's
You.
I think that for me as a child, it was kind of ingrained in me through social media or TV. I didn't really see many Black models, and if I did, their hair was straightened. The only thing that was life-changing for me, which I say this all the time, was Princess and the Frog, because that was the first time I
Hey.
ever saw a princess that was Black, with curly hair, mind you, because I
Yeah.
never thought that it was
interesting.
pretty, and I was like, "Oh, wow, so if she can be a princess, so can I." So I definitely hated my race, my skin, my hair, all that, because I thought it stuck out. So I think a lot of women wear weaves and things to work because it
It's easier
curly
for
hair
them.
isn't viewed as professional, and it is easier
Yeah.
as well.
That's why I do this to my head, because it's easier. I'm just lazy. It's fine.
Yeah, just shave it off.
Yeah, absolutely easier.
Mine's running away from my eyebrows so quickly. I'm gonna enjoy it while I still can. Thanks.
No, period. You have to do that.
Yeah. But this is I'm gonna try and loop this back to the original conversation a little bit and throw some connective tissue in here. And this is where, when I was talking to you on the phone the other day, Dave, and I'm gonna reiterate it again for the podcast, how, while I agree that the paper is over the top and a lot of the paper's solutions seem ridiculous, because some of them I think are ridiculous, the core concept of the paper, that the method and the institutions with which we're teaching kids are built, they're built by old white people predominantly. Like these are old, very old methods of teaching and systems in place by which we teach kids that haven't been properly addressed or updated for a new, better understanding and a new, more inclusive culture that I think the world is working towards, especially the Western world, and should be working towards, I think. And so the core concept of this paper, I feel, is they're trying to rock the boat, and I think they're doing it unhealthily. But I like that they're trying, if that makes sense.
So
I think
I
they're
don't
overdoing it.
agree.
Well, yeah,
I don't
and
agree.
so I'm
Only
going to put.
because
Go ahead,
I'm
Jayla.
sorry, what?
You go ahead, Ick, and then I'll say my two piece. I get to talk every week.
I don't think, like, I get their heart behind it. I really do. So I do get what you're saying. A lot of the things that America's built off of was pretty much white men. So it's not even
yeah,
just minorities, but women weren't necessarily set up for success either back in the day. But I just feel like sometimes, especially someone that I did live in Oregon, a lot of the things they hyper focus on when it comes to race
mm,
is not I take more of an issue with like the police system,
yeah,
or that black man a couple months ago going on death row when it
yeah,
wasn't proven. The prison system is terrible
yeah.
when it comes to minorities. Like
Hmm.
we saw a police officer he killed George Floyd. That's a big, like almost a bigger issue to me. A lot of the
Oh, definitely.
article almost sometimes it offends me because I feel like they're lowering us to the point to where it's like, oh, you can't show your work. We'll give you an easier way out. That it's
It,
it's a lot for me. So I don't
yeah, I
really
equate it.
always like that.
I think of it like, I'm trying to think of a good metaphor for it. Like, Becky, who goes to Starbucks 3 times a day and tweets about, hashtag Black Lives Matter. this paper is like a hashtag Black Lives Matter for actual racism, if that makes sense. Like it's a superficial skin, like just barely even skin deep attempt at changing something, when I feel like if there was like a committee that had to come together that got paid to spend time to research and write and edit that paper, they could have done way better stuff, way more impactful stuff for education than writing that paper.
So I will tell you,
So
because I did the research on the paper, it's been years in the making. It was a committee. It was a university who did it. It had
yeah,
a lot of research into it. And yet I believe all three of us all agree on this aspect, is that it really is, if you'll forgive God the phrase, it's white guilt. And we're looking down, sort of as Jayla said, and we're saying, here, we'll make it easier for you.
yeah,
As though we
that's
have the right or the ability to do that, when what it is math.
I really love the term that you use there, white guilt. I think that was pretty much, I think that's pretty spot on in terms of why this paper exists in the form that it exists. I'm still
Here's what
trying to find my, sorry.
here's what
Yeah,
worries me
go ahead.
about it, is that it's a government recommended program. So we have a government who says, hey, you should learn this. And I believe it's elementals. That's not even a word. Good
Elementary.
God, David. It's elementary problems, or the foundation of the paper is wrong. The how is okay.
See, I'm
If
the
we
other way
want to look
around.
at
I
the
think the how
methods,
is wrong. I think the foundation is
okay, you can look at it that way. I guess it's apples. It's
yeah.
orange
Dave, do
apples.
you know who, like, were these minorities that wrote this paper?
No. Are you
That's a good
kidding?
question, and I forgot to research that.
Okay, so that's why, to me, a lot of the foundation isn't right, because I see right now, and this is including my generation especially, I see a lot of people that aren't minorities hyper focusing on these tiny little things, as in, we're going to cancel you if you lip sync the N word in a song or whatever, right? And like, I get it. I don't like when people say that word, or when white people say that word, okay? But I just think there's a bigger problem with the educational system, which is, why are a lot of black kids going and committing crime? Why is there 10 times more alcohol stores and drug stores in a poor community than there is in a rich community? That's
Mhm.
more where I see a problem with black education, more
Yeah,
than how we're teaching math right now. Like, I'm not saying that math shouldn't change. I just, when the foundation isn't from a minority standpoint, I don't really care how much
right.
research. I don't really get it. It makes me have a disconnect, because you're speaking for us. It's the same thing with the African American Ebonics language that
Mm.
they're trying to have now, and make that an official language, and it's pretty much slang. It is very belittling, because you're saying that
Yeah,
only black people speak slang, and you're putting
yeah,
our name
that's
on it.
ridiculous.
Like,
It's
it's
almost like
absolutely crazy.
in a this isn't quite the right word, but it's the best one I can think of. It's almost fetishizing it in a sense that a bunch of white people are hyper fixating on something and trying to lift it up and make it more uh, predominant, when it's not a matter of it not being predominant. It's a matter of it just being accepted. We don't need
Right.
to.
It it was the same with like, when all the protests and riots were happening, like in Portland, for instance, which was like one of the top cities
Mhm.
rioting, for days on end.
Yeah,
The ones committing violence, a lot of them weren't even minorities. So that
yeah,
made us look bad. And then, even I saw a lot of white people saying, "Oh, let's abolish all cops. Let's up," like, all this
no,
stuff. And then you
Yeah,
see
they're
these Black
stupid.
people in poor communities saying, "Hey, so let's not do that because there's so much crime. If we didn't have
Yeah,
police officers, it'd be over." And these are coming from poor Black people that don't even like police. They
yeah,
don't. Most Black people at this point really don't like police. But
yeah,
we do all have this recognition that they still protect us. Now, do we know for sure if they're going to that day? No, but
yeah.
we'd rather take our chance than getting shot
There's
up
a lot of
by
room for improvement.
gangs. Right.
Yeah,
Like there's just so it just
the,
doesn't
the,
make sense like at
yeah.
all.
And so yeah, like while I still butt heads a lot with Dave on the subject of this paper, I agree with you that the paper is drastically overreaching, and I think is an immense waste of resources, a mismanagement of resources. All the money that went to paying a committee of people to write that out, they could have done so much more. Like, I'll bet you if you put all the salaries for the people that made that and all the money that went into getting it edited and then printed and distributed, you could have paid for a lot of kids' lunches. Like, you could have done so much more with that money.
Right.
It's an immense like that's the part that bugs me the most about that paper, is that it's just a bureaucratic burning of money.
So I need to
As
take
much
Yeah,
as
but
my
I
I
words back.
do
They are people of
I'm
color
sorry.
who did this.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I've been Googling while I've been off the screen, and they are people of color, all three of them.
Well, that gives it a little more credit. I still think they were flushing money
It
down the
does.
toilet regardless.
I do. Very
So it reminds
overly
me of a
sensitive.
quote by Morgan Freeman a while ago, and I'm sure all of us have watched it. He was in an interview with, and I forget the news organization, and they were asking him if he was a supporter of Black History Month. And he looked at him and he said, "Are you a Jew?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "And is there a Jewish History Month?" And he said, "Well, no." And he said, "So why is there a Black History Month?" And this is Morgan Freeman, who said, I'm like you. I don't need to have a Black History Month. And I
Right.
see that here, and maybe it's oversimplification of the issue. Although I think that we really just need to teach math.
Well,
However,
I
we teach
also
math.
don't agree with what Morgan Freeman said, but
Yeah, I don't either.
I've heard a lot of people say that,
Yeah.
I guess. Which we actually do have a lot of months for different races. They're just not as popular as Black History Month,
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like. But I also if you look at like Germany or whatever, you see Holocaust things everywhere because
Yeah.
they
Holocaust happened there, not
they
here, so
did
they would
that.
have the holidays.
So that's why we have a history month because of our history. Same with how
Yeah.
a lot of things we do also like talking and educating ourselves about Native Americans because that
Hmm.
happened in America. I'm sure if we go to China, they're not going to be talking about Native Americans as much as we do here.
Yeah.
They're talking about their own historical marks and things like
Yes.
that have happened. So, and I do appreciate the month only because a lot of people don't know about what a lot of Black people started and created and all this. People think that a lot of people have a mindset here that I've seen where they think they don't know if it was just an American thing or if it was the slaves being brought over here. They don't really know the history of that. So I even enjoy learning about, you know, Black women, creating or helping making the microwave and things like that.
Yeah. Black
Because
History Month, I
a
don't
lot
think
of
is.
people assume it's white people, honestly.
Yeah. I don't. This is my take on it. I don't know if this is necessarily the actual impetus behind things like Black History Month, but I look at them as not a celebration of, oh, look at us, we're African Americans, yeehaw, go us. It's a call to education. And I think that
Yeah.
putting it on a pedestal and putting it out there and making sure that people kind of have to take notice of it to a certain degree, I don't think of it as a celebration of African American culture. I think of it as a way to remind people that they need to be educated on African American history in America, because it's a huge part of America's history, and it's in many ways a huge blight on American history, how the country has managed it. And I think that you.
I'm going to push back a little bit, Will, because I think outside of Arkansas and Alabama, a little bit of Georgia, is there anybody in the U.S., in the majority of Americans, who need to be educated about our Black history?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yep,
Oh,
pretty much all of them, Dave. Yeah.
Wow.
There's people that don't realize how bad slavery was.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we whipped people, that's it. They don't know that we were
No.
raped. There's people that hung Black men and put them down in a fire and kept bringing them up and down until they were dead. People don't know that stuff. They're like, why are y'all so sensitive about it? It's over. And
So
all
if
this
they
stuff.
don't-
A lot of people don't take the extra time to be educated. That's why they're like, oh, I don't believe that racism still exists. I don't believe police brutality is a problem. They don't do the research on that stuff. So we got to do bare minimum.
This is where the education system, this is where the money that went into this goofy paper should have gone, because America's education system doesn't like talking about just how bad slavery was.
No, they don't.
Like it's only in the last 20 years that we've started taking a look at what Christopher Columbus did and been like, yeesh, and we still have the holiday. The holiday still exists. So it's
So, forgive me.
This is why I say that the education system, and to an extent math, is kind of inherently racist because of who wrote the books.
So I'm never going to agree with you that math is racist. Although I did agree with you, and I said in the preamble yesterday or day before, I believe if we're going to look at any of our subjects and say that they are racist, it should be our history subject. It could be our social studies. It could be our language arts, and incorporate all the cultures in. I don't think I'll ever agree with you that math or physics is racist.
Mathematics as the science itself is you're right, is not racist. But I think that the people who originally developed what we have as like an educational system around mathematics could quite likely be racist or have
I agree with that. It's like the foundation of like America and like
is
the
racist by
Constitution and all
proxy.
that. I don't view it necessarily on its own as racist, but I know that it came from racist people, and I know that I wasn't included in their foundation. Like even with like all men are equal. Well, they weren't talking about any minority pretty much, because there was still like slavery. So they still didn't
at the time,
view Black men
to
as
them
equal.
was white people.
Right, and definitely not Black women. We were the bottom of the totem pole. So I wasn't even included in the foundation of America being created. So I don't, like, of course I respect our country and all that stuff, but I know that the foundation was racist. So I do agree with him when it comes to the foundation of our education. Definitely wasn't to educate minorities at all.
Yeah,
at all.
Mathematics themselves are fine.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with racism. 2 + 2 is 4 is not racist on its own.
We're going to. I don't know that we'll ever agree on that entirely, and not from the standpoint that the foundation of America wasn't racist, as I believe it was founded in slavery. I agree with all that. I absolutely agree.
Built on blood, boy.
I think you can make an argument that every nation in the world was built on the backs of somebody.
Yeah, every great nation in existence has been built on the back of an expendable workforce.
It was not on the backs of somebody. If it be the Jews, if it be
Egypt,
the blacks in America, you can go through all the way into Egypt and the pyramids, and you can go all the way back in history and say it's built on the backs of somebody. For me, the difference is it's not anymore. So acknowledge the history, yes. Acknowledge the issues, yes. But to look at, I'm going to use an example here you brought up is the Columbus guy. Christopher Columbus. Yes, he owns slaves. He was a rapist. He was a horrible person. But usually, if you look at greatness, it comes also with a downside in any great man.
See, we're gonna stop. I'm gonna stop you right there.
Okay.
Let's not refer to him as a great man if we can. I'd appreciate that.
I didn't refer to him as a great man.
He was he was
I
an
said
important man. He was not great.
Okay. If you take any man of importance who did large things and great
you go.
things, there usually was a dark side.
Yep.
If you look at a Whitney Houston, who was an amazing voice, who had a habit. If you look at Mozart, who was an amazing musician, who had a very dark side to him. If you look at any greatness in terms of ability and in terms of accomplishment, there always is a dark side.
Yeah.
And so when I look at it,
There is, but I think that it has love to it, because like Whitney Houston having a drug problem, for instance, obviously she had a dark side.
Mhm.
But then when I look at someone that has the brain to look at someone that looks different than them and say, hey, I'm going to take and use you. And it wasn't even that they were just using them for work, because that's like one thing, obviously
Right.
that's not right, but like they were out there like whipping them
yeah.
and doing things like
Yeah.
this. Like this is like very much harsh suffering. And I think
It's
that dark side should not, like, I don't care who they are. I'd rather have someone have like a different dark side than bringing it out on somebody else,
And
especially massively like that, and not feel bad about it
Right.
either.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think that
you're
you have to look at,
you're bringing up of like historical abuse of other nations. So the Egyptians using the Israelites, Germans, I don't even say using the Jews, they just killed them, or Americans using using black people to build their country. They all have the common thread in the sense that one person was on top and he stepped on another group of people to get higher. And I think this is me kind of being super philosophical about it, so bear with me here. I think this is part of us as a culture trying, and not succeeding all the time, but trying to move beyond that, because all these other cultures, the Egyptians, at no point I think have Egyptians properly, like, they've never owned up to the fact that they did that with the Israelites. They treated them as a subhuman culture. And I think that as a people trying to acknowledge and learn from our mistreatment of another culture, I think it's a good thing. I think that's just because it has been done before and other cultures have abused other cultures doesn't mean that we should be less critical of ourselves and the abuse that we inflicted on another culture. If anything, it should be reason for us to address it and look at it and move on and up from it. Does it make sense? No, okay. Tim's comment, not erase history. No. We need to learn from history. If all these other cultures have abused other cultures, they have done that. They have abused other cultures. We need to be better than that. We've got all these examples of one culture crapping on another. We need to be better than that.
Is there anybody in America or Canada? Again, I'm going to exclude Arkansas, Alabama, and half of Georgia. Is there anybody who wouldn't agree with that statement?
They agree with it, but this is the problem: is that it's systemic. It's baked into what we consider normal. It's so ingrained in America. Like some of these things, like all the stuff that Jayla's talking about with low-income communities and how they're managed, excess of liquor stores and all these things that we brush them off as being normal because it's just how it's been our entire lives. They are inherently racist. They are helping to, there are systems, whether intentional or otherwise, that are holding an entire culture down and not letting them be equal.
What do you think about that,
A
Jayla?
lot of people, way more than the South. There's a lot more racism around than you think you are. Do you think there are? You would be surprised, but also I don't think you see it as much as I do.
And I would agree
Need to
with
be
that.
just like, I'm not saying that this is always the super top as in like white supremacy. I'm not going around seeing white supremacists all the time or seeing people be like, I don't want to talk to you because you're black or whatever. I have had that here, but I think a lot of the stuff that people are trying to correct are these little prejudices that happen to me every day. Like there's still an
It's
issue with that, whether people realize it or not. There's so many people that say I'm not racist, but there's still hella prejudice, like
it's not
really
overt
prejudice.
racism, but it's there.
I've even I've seen multiple parents of like people I've dated, for instance, say I don't have a problem with black people. I have a problem with N-words. And they don't think they're racist for saying that comment at all. And that, you know, that like I don't really say anything because it's not my necessarily place. I just usually ask what's the difference. But
I absolutely think it's your place
racism
to
is
say something.
well, yeah, but I'm just saying that it's definitely alive and well more than just the South. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't educated. They don't even know about more liquor stores being in black communities, nor do they care. And I saw more racism than ever last year with even friends of mine after they saw, like, you know, the George Floyd thing happen. Like, people genuinely thought that that was okay that happened because he was a criminal. And that's like a huge issue to me because they didn't even the police didn't know he was a criminal or his back history yet. And even if he was, I still have to question did he deserve to die that way? And that I don't know. So
Yeah.
there's still like a lot of
I don't think that there
little issues.
is a rational human, and I added an adjective in there, a rational human who looked at the George Floyd story and said, "Yeah, no, that's okay."
No, but you get people like Tucker Carlson who are like, "Oh, that was bad, but
I
not
knew you were
really
going to
that
bring that
bad."
up, William.
Yeah, I am.
That's why I put the rational in there. I put the rational statement. He is an
Well, I'm
actor.
glad that you agree that Tucker
He's an
Carlson isn't
entertainment.
rational.
But there is nobody who looks at that and said it was a good thing. There is nobody who looks at that and said it wouldn't have happened if he had been a white person, though. Like, and
Oh,
that
there's
is
lots of
where
people.
maybe, well, if they are, they're not rational.
But this is the
But they're
thing,
not
Dave. And this
rational,
is
Will.
yes,
But
but this is the
so many of them saying that
yeah,
to the
but not
point
even
where
saying
it's a
that.
problem. Like
It's when they say oh that's a bad thing, but you know he was a criminal. Or if they say, oh, that was a bad thing, you know, but this. No, it was a bad thing. We don't have to make justifications. It was a bad thing.
And anybody who argues with that is an idiot.
Yeah. But you
right, but
have people
there's just so many though. Like
Who
there's
say
so
what?
many that aren't that say
Who say
things
that it's
like that.
okay?
well, it's
Not
not saying that
necessarily
it's
that it's
okay. It's
okay, but
implying.
making an excuse. Oh, well,
Yes.
I mean, I don't really understand why it's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
If he was white, it wouldn't be that like no one would care. Like there's people that always will make an excuse for it every single time.
Right.
It blows my mind that people were actually having debates about it just as much as you. Even with the Ahmaud Arbery thing, where they were like
You have to
when he
refresh
was
my
running and
memory.
they like shot him with those shotguns.
Yeah.
The fact that people were like, oh well, let's look at, you know, he was in this construction site, he was blah blah blah. I didn't get why there was that much of a discussion. Either way, if he did something technically, how we're supposed to deal with things like that is you call the cops. I don't understand how a son and a father can take it upon themselves because he went on a construction site to kill someone. People were trying to say that, I mean, it's okay if he wasn't
He
allowed
was
to be there.
trespassing. It was private property.
I
They
don't
had
know
every
about
right
all
to
that.
shoot him.
This was a huge, same with the Breonna Taylor. It took a
Yeah.
lot of effort to get justice for her, and she still hasn't gotten it. Like that's what I view as the issue. Why is it taking this much effort? It didn't take y'all to notice these issues until people started burning up your property. It shouldn't take that much.
So
at
I
all.
will agree with you, is because I didn't have this conversation until a year ago.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly agree. Although I hold myself as a part of society that didn't. You'll forgive the expression. I didn't see color in that way, or through that prism, or through that lens. I
Yeah.
didn't. It was never a factor in my decision. So
This
I
is why
didn't-
Black History Month is important. This is why things like that are important, is because it makes us look at these things and look at it from a minority's point of view. It puts a big spotlight on it.
I think we're going.
I just saw.
Yeah.
Sorry, I saw Brad's comment,
Yes.
and you would be surprised at how many people said it's okay. It depends on who you follow and things, because you follow what you like to see. I tend to follow things that I don't like to see because I like to educate people and have discussions, and I do want to understand where they're coming from. So I don't want to be surprised by anything they say. I know a lot of debates people will say when it comes to like racism and things like that. And I if they're stubborn and don't want to agree, that's totally fine, but I would like to be automatically prepared. So I do see a lot of
I will say, if you ever doubt that people exist that say that it's okay, go find well, don't even listen to Tucker Carlson. Go check out the comment section under his videos, or go find like what's an example? There's a YouTube channel that I really do truly admire called T-Rex Arms. They produce firearms holsters and things like that. And they do live streams, and they did live streams around the election. If you go watch their live streams, you cannot go 30 seconds without people calling for a civil war, for Rope Day, or Boogaloo Part 2, which is just
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. I hate that they took the word Boogaloo because I love that
people
word.
just blow my mind.
Yeah. And you can't go, I'm not exaggerating, but you cannot go 30 seconds without cropping up. Saying that there's no one who thinks that it was okay is purely anecdotal.
Rational person.
Yes. It doesn't have the same to answer Brad's question, it doesn't have the same Black History Month, but we basically celebrate it in tandem with America. It is just Black History Month, and we just treat it as, it isn't an official holiday, I don't think, but we basically just, there's programs on TV, radio shows, articles, etc. It all just kind of goes along at the same time.
So we need to wrap this up as we're bumping up against an hour, and I thought this would go a lot harder than this. I think this has been a fruitful conversation. I appreciate the pushback, because I think it's important, Jay, like that these conversations are had. I think it's important to hear from rational people on both sides of a story, of an argument. I think it's absolutely invaluable. We are going to be touching on this in 2 weeks, actually from the perspective of a school teacher. We're going to touch this from her angle, as it's a completely different angle, and yet her argument is very similar, is that it isn't math, it's about how we teach math. It needs to change, and that was, I thought it was good. So I appreciate you coming on, Jayla. You don't know me very well, except for when I yell at you on Sunday morning, and I appreciate you trusting us enough to come in and argue with us.
I'm officially giving you a permission to yell back. You can put him in his place.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Jayla, thank you very much. I'm going to kick you off. We're going to wrap this up. I'm pushing up against an hour, and our podcast is limited to an hour a month, so I got to edit this all down now. So... But thank
Okay.
you
Thank you
very
so much for being
Thank
on.
you for having
Really,
me.
You
it
bet.
was a
We'll see you,
pleasure.
Jayla. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
William, that was awesome.
That was really good.
I so appreciated her viewpoint and her willingness to push back and to say, "Hey, I
Yeah.
don't agree with that." I thought that was.
Yeah.
I wish more young people were that lucid about the conversation. I really do.
And eloquent. She made her points very clearly.
Oh, don't use those large words. I'm gonna have to remember.
You know what
them in the
eloquent
morning.
means, Dave. Read a dictionary or a thesaurus.
Our number
And
one.
thanks, number one fan Tim.
That's right. So next week we will be talking youth and mental health in the lockdown and pandemic
More lighthearted
with Ann
subjects.
Dickel. It's a huge topic, and we're not going to get into it a whole lot. And then the week after that, we're actually going to have a friend of ours who's a principal in a school, and we're going to be talking about this math and racism, etc.
Mm-hmm.
From her perspective. And we
Yeah.
have one more thing to shill.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
don't you buy us a coffee?
Buy us a coffee.
Go
Just
to
a cup of coffee.
www.buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave Show, and you can
Yeah.
for $5.
For those who don't know how that website works, it's literally just it allows you to just give a one-time donation if you want to support the show for about the price of a cup of coffee. It's not a recurring thing. You just do it once if you feel like doing it.
That's right. Other than that, we have one more here from Brad, who I think is going to be our number 2 fan after Tim, and he may even overtake Tim. But I agree with you. There are haters everywhere, and
Yeah.
I hate the fact that the haters are usually the vocal ones.
Yeah. And unfortunately, too many politicians cater to them because there's a lot of them and they vote.
Will has big words. So I was at church here the other day, William. We were having an event, and I did something. I said something as only I can, and I realized I was pulling from Much Ado About Nothing. I went up and I said,
Okay.
"Let the record stand. I am an ass."
You're not wrong.
More often,
I mean, yeah.
more often than not, I have to repent of things I say. I don't have to this evening. I don't think I said anything I need to repent of tonight. But yeah,
Think so?
just
You're old, you're wise, and you're an ass.
in that order.
Better to be a smartass than a dumbass.
Okay, well, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. We will see you
Thank you.
next week, same time, same station.
Stay safe. Don't die.